In this video, you get to see how I interpreted Sarah Belle Reid's composition from her Postcard project.
So I just got my postcard from Sarah Belle Reid, and I'm starting the long journey of overthinking how I'm going to interpret this. So I've got a copy of it here, which I'm going to step through. First thing I'm noticing is that there's a ton of motion in all of this. Energy, things going back and forth and squiggling. And I'm noticing that there's only the gold and the black colors going on here. To me, the choice of gold really resonates as like a non-organic kind of thing, juxtaposed with sort of this organic bits of the black here. The other high-level thing I see that's pretty obvious is there's sort of like groupings of things here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these as like individual components. And to me, these two here really jump out as like almost synthesizer voices, with the obvious, sine wave and sawtooth pattern. And over here is sort of like a distortion version of it, almost like they're mirrors of each other. This piece is called Timekeeper because it's playing with time, and I think I'm going to do that too, where I'm going to look at this as very micro level timing, but also a kind of macro level timing as well. So I think I might use these symbols to help me form the actual sound waves, so at like the single cycle wave level, but also use these to form maybe phrases as well. So at the moment I'm thinking maybe there's two voices that have sort of sound characteristics of those, but also phrases musically like this, and maybe they travel along this artifact here. These two here look like they could be maybe percussive elements, maybe. I'm really got to think more and reflect more about what I'm going to do with this one here. But these three to be determined still. I think this structure here I'm going to use as like the structure of the overall song at the macro level. It kind of looks like it comes here and down here and up back again, maybe. And to me, this is really evocative of a clock or a gear of some sort. It's in that gold, so this is very mechanical looking, but it's got those dots too, so it's kind of like a little organic and mixed in there. I counted out the little hash marks around here, and there are 40 of them. And I don't know if that means anything, so I'm going to have to kind of think about that and reflect on that a little bit. It's a pretty round number, so I don't know if that was intentional or not. So I'm thinking I'm going to approach it as these as being voices and traveling along this structure, and there's little notations along the way to help me along. So I've worked on the sound design for this element here, which is blending a sine wave and a sawtooth together, and that's worked out pretty good. And so I'm thinking this voice is going to be fairly clean, fairly organic, but also pretty much leaving the two waveforms intact without too much processing on it. And I'll go with this gold here as being the sequence for the pattern that will be the the pitch over some time, and it'll be pretty regular, but as you can see there's different sizes and spacings on these dots, so that will definitely change the presence and density of the pattern. Take that pattern and I'll sequence that sequence across this macro sequence here, and so it'll have some variation along the way. So it's sequencing electrons at the sub-second level, and then also at the probably I don't know, 64 or fewer beats level, and then the several minutes level. Then over here we have sort of its doppelganger, but a little bit more distorted and a little less symmetry involved with this version over here. So at the sound design level, this will be either triangle or saw waves with some sort of sine wave. But, taking care to make sure they're a little distorted and not as clean as the version over here. After the sound design is done for this voice, I'll have a small sequence of 16, 32-ish, maybe beats. And it looks like it'll descend in pitch, probably. And the presence and density descends as well, so it'll be a little stronger here and sort of lighter out here as well in that small sequence. But then taking this sequence and actually running it through a kind of a medium level sequence that goes along here, because this has got some nice notations on it, and then moving that sort of medium over to the macro. So we have the sub-second sequences in the sound design. We have the 16 or 32 beat phrase here. And we have a kind of a medium-sized phrase, and then the macro phrase as it travels. Now I've decided with this element here that this looks a lot like kind of a rhythmic thing, and it's circular. It's kind of rigid, but also kind of fluffy and not dense in the middle. And if I think of this like a clock and I kind of split it down here and go along this way, then, it's like it's a playhead kind of moving around here, and that could be the rhythmic element. And with a rhythm like this, I think it's going to be not really traditional bass drums and snares and so forth, but more like clicks and pops probably, with different varying densities. So if you were to take this and kind of roll it out, you'd have the thicker density stuff on the top and the lower density stuff on the bottom. I think the kind of the bigger thuds are going to be down here, and the lighter airy clicks are going to be up here. And this pattern looks almost stochastic, but there is a regularity to it as well. So I think that will translate in here as well to the pattern with the rhythms as well. And also playing with that clock theme, I'm looking at this as kind of being read in clockwise fashion as well, whereas it might be an arpeggiation sequence. And so I think I'd look at each 7 of these little kind of tendrils as being an individual sequence of an arpeggiation. So there'd be like 7 different chord changes on this. And the notes are ascending here, but with less density, ascending here, sort of ascending, descending, etc., etc. And the notes are ascending here, but with less density, ascending here, sort of ascending, descending, etc., etc. In a sound design sense, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with this yet. I might go with some sort of frequency modulation, or, something unique, whimsical. Then this is looking to me much more like a bass line now. relative to everything else. It has some pretty good presence, but it's not too overpowering. So I think this would be a 16-ish bar loop, and then from there, in a medium level, kind of sequence that across these as well. So it's maybe the pitches are changing there. So maybe every 16 bars or so, it changes to this, and then to this, and to this, both in the pitch based off of these and their density and presence as well. Of course, as I keep saying, each of these individual components would then travel along this bigger score over terms of several minutes, with changes to them along the way. With that, I think this is the start, and it'll go up here, and then it comes down along here, and then moves around this, almost like a little clockwork as well. Go along this way. And then take a little turn here, and it keeps going, and then right here it's going to kind of keep going around this element and then come back. And when it gets to this point, it's sort of like a reflection point in the whole song, I think, and it should work like a clockwork, I think. So I've been thinking about utilizing delay for this. So either delay or somehow synchronizing the sequences of everything throughout this, the involvement of this, through its time here to here. This has big presence and low density, so you'll definitely notice it, but it won't take over the entire song. So I was thinking about something like bandpassed delay that's really pizzicato or staccato. Also thinking of delay because that brings an element of feedback in that kind of gets back to this whole concept of time folding onto itself, and repeating along with it. And there's also this event here, so when it comes down and around here, it's going to fire off these two little fun things here, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to interpret these yet, but it'll have something. And to try it out, I might actually pull out a ruler and literally measure these out, these lengths, and then divide that up by how much time roughly I want to make the song, and then divide that by beats. And then that way I'll know how many beats I have, how many of the iterations I can do of these smaller sequences and the kind of medium sequences, and then think about where these come in and come out